If you're even remotely into video games, it's likely that you also saw The Witcher 4 showcase that just went live everywhere on the internet. And it was blowing everyone's minds with how gorgeous it all looked and how incredible the animations, from the way Ciri's cape falls as she jumps off her horse, to the way her facial expressions imitate almost lifelike human emotion as she talks to the trader in that showcase as well. I don't want to get it twisted here. I'm not here to call CD Projekt Red liars or try to start beef with them. I've already fought with their CEO in the past and proved their commitment to stuff like DEI even when they lied about it. But make no mistake, I still think that CD Projekt Red is a talented developer, and I do hold no ill will for the developers there that work there. But that being said, there is this deception amidst games from all the way back in the mid-2010s to sadly even now, where you're being sold something as one thing, but then it quickly ends up becoming something else once you've actually started to play it. So, The Witcher 4 looks amazing, at first glance at least. Everything just looks insane. Apparently the demo is running even on a base PlayStation 5 as well, making players gasp, "Oh my god, this is running on a PS5? Well, imagine it on the PC or more." And as CD Projekt Red put it themselves, as seen here from PC Gamer, The Witcher 4 is promised to be the most immersive and ambitious open-world Witcher game ever, which I mean, God, I hope so, because the last one is now 10 years old at this point. And I still think Witcher 3 looks amazing. Then again, I'm not crazy about graphics either way. I care way more about stability and performance myself. Your game can look god tier, but if it runs horribly, what's the point? CD Projekt Red is also no stranger to having weird launches. Even The Witcher 3's launch was full of corrupted save files and bad performances across the board and plenty of bugged quests. Of course, now the game is amazing and runs buttery smooth. Again, though, that's 10 years later, but still, even Cyberpunk. I don't think I need to tell you how that game ran at launch if you played it, and comparing Cyberpunk today to what it released as in 2020 is honestly two very different games. I don't know about you, but I refunded Cyberpunk when it first released, and I didn't replay it till the PS5 version next-gen update finally released. And when you look at how Cyberpunk was marketed with its beautiful CGI trailers, like that first one where they show the woman in slow-mo and the guy has a gun to her head, wow, that looked amazing. Then you saw how Cyberpunk released and it was like CDPR was trolling everybody. I wager those days are hopefully behind them. I would hope anyways, whenever Witcher 4 does release, that it'll run well and look great. Which is why this big Unreal Engine 5 showcase of Witcher 4 was such a wow moment. Look how great this all looks. Wow, they're showing you how you can see every pine needle on a tree. Incredible, and it's a tech demo. Yep, hate to break it to you guys, I don't enjoy pissing in people's cereal all the time, but unfortunately it is confirmed that the Witcher 4 showcase was in fact, oh man, not real gameplay at all. And everything we just saw was essentially just a vertical slice of not what the game will actually be like, but instead simply what CDPR would want it to look like. Oh boy, but it's likely not going to actually. As Gaming Bolt here reports, which reads, the Witcher 4 tech demo doesn't represent the Witcher 4 itself. Clarifies CD Projekt Red. Oh boy, it showcases the powerful foundation we're building in close collaboration with Epic Games to push open world design further. So everything we just saw, all the gorgeous foliage, those beautiful horses, all the back riding looks so good, the way Ciri's hands move when holding a coin, it was all just a tech demo in the end. Well, that kind of sucks, doesn't it? Look, okay, I don't want to be a downer, alright? This isn't the first time we've seen a tech demo for a game. However, the fact that CD Projekt Red and the game's media were pushing this initially not as a tech demo, but as a real tangible first look at how Witcher 4 would look has left people, well, soured, to say the least. I kind of had a feeling this wasn't legit because firstly, Ciri looks, how do I put this? She doesn't look current gen. Does that make sense to you? Like, she looks uncannily almost CGI trailer looking. She looks so detailed, it doesn't feel like it could be in a game. Well, now we know that is exactly the case here too, but you know what I mean. Again, not crapping on CD Projekt Red, because I know someone will think that I am. It's just, can we stop doing this, guys? Can we stop making promises to players players when it's so evident you're not going to be able to reach what you're showing them? Like, I get it, sure you want to excite people, and especially by showing footage like they did here, it will entice the investors with the heavy pockets to want to give you money so you can have more resources. Look, I get it, I really do. But all my initial excitement for Witcher 4 has yet again been kinda drop kicked in the head with all of this now. I mean, CDPR hasn't only done this once. Like I said, they did this so obviously with Cyberpunk 2077 too. Forget how the game looks now. Go compare how the trailers looked for Cyberpunk around 2020 versus when the game launched on PS4, Xbox One, and PC at the time. This was the moment that many players obviously lost trust in CDPR because they actively lied to them about selling a product and profited from it. For a good example of this, when Cyberpunk released and it was bad and it ran like crap, there was a lot of finger pointing that was just going around at that time. You had articles like this 2 years after the Cyberpunk fiasco from Forbes saying, report claims that Cyberpunk 2077 bugs weren't caught because a QA company lied to CD Projekt Red. So allegedly, 2 years after CDPR went through what they did with Cyberpunk, eventually the blame was shifted onto a contract company named Quantic Lab. According to what Upper Echelon Gamers, a YouTuber who broke this story back then, said, according to a 72-page document, which I will not bore us both by reading all of it, of course, but to summarize it, Quantic Lab, which QA'd Cyberpunk, lied to CDPR allegedly about the size of their staff in order to keep the contract on the game because they needed the money. They also lied saying that they were full of senior staff members who specialized in bugs and QA when in actuality, they were just junior staff at best. And apparently Quantic sent daily reports to CDPR of thousands of bugs that they were mostly nothing and failed to actually report on the real issues in the game. So why I'm bringing this up is simple. It's that companies usually aren't very forthcoming with how things go within their operations. And especially when things go horribly bad, fingers start getting pointed. I mean, you can even go look up the original trailer's gameplay, not CGI, for Witcher 3 and then compare it to the game. Even then, what CDPR showed was not exactly what people got. It actually reminded me a lot of the Watch Dogs E3 demo when I saw Witcher 4. Remember when Ubisoft showed that off and everyone lost their collective minds about it? Everyone went, oh my god, this is it. This is going to be the GTA killer. The industry has finally done it, people. Look how incredible the lighting effects are and the vehicle damage. Wow, Watch Dogs is so amazing. This then led to Ubisoft having to admit publicly to everyone that the Watch Dogs E3 trailer was also a tech demo and not the real game. And we know that because the collective disappointment from players when Watch Dogs released for real was, what the hell is even this? And why does it look terrible compared to that amazing trailer that you guys showed, and that's why they all bought the game for in the first place? It even led to IGN all the way back in 2014, mind you, that's 11 years ago, my god, with this article titled, Are E3 Demos Intentionally Deceptive? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely they are. I find these trailers to always be too good to be true, and that's exactly what's happening right now with Witcher 4. It just proves that this industry, time and again, is just a flat circle. They loop, they keep doing the same things over and over again. Now when I look at this Witcher 4 first look, I don't really feel impressed now because none of it is real. And by real, I mean it won't be like this in the retail version when you buy it. I raise an eyebrow especially during the part of the tech demo where Siri speaks to that black market trader guy by the pier. First of all, that trader's face, I don't know about you guys, but it is insanely detailed. Like way more than you would think a normal random NPC or quest NPC, I guess, that Siri likely talks to like once or twice would be animated like. But what really gave it away for me was how Siri's facial expressions looked during the scene. Like, look at this. Look how she flips the coin and moves her body during the scene. It almost felt too good to be true. Like, this would be something doable maybe if the game was like 3 hours long, like a Hellblade or something. But for a supposed god knows 80+ hour open world RPG game, unfortunately, that's probably just not going to happen, and that sucks. Maybe CDPR will keep this moment in-game and try to render it in the engine, but generally speaking, I would wager that most NPCs will just stand like most NPCs do in games, and sure, they could look better, at least I hope so, but the reality is that video games are very expensive to make, and there's no way that Witcher 4 isn't costing at least, I don't know, maybe $300 million plus. I would be shocked if it was even less than that, because now you're again setting up players for this amazing reveal that looked way too good to be true, and you know that you can reach that. And looking at comments of people finding out that it's a tech demo over actual gameplay, I mean, it tells you everything. Like Kada here, who said, just killed all the goodwill they were getting. It really really is just this. Because now people aren't going to look at your new showcase and go, wow, Witcher 4 is going to look like this? That's insane. They would be developing this game for like 10 plus years if they managed to hit this quality bar consistently, especially if this game is like 80 plus hours long, and I frankly don't think that CDPR is going to do that. Of course, you also had idiots in the comments saying stuff like this: don't think it will hurt The Witcher 4 if it's stable on release, downgrades should be expected. Great, we're already having apologists coming to CDPR's defense to defend them. Leave the multi-million-dollar company alone, they say. Look, I get the flack for calling out the industry, but it has to be said, man. Stop lying to people. You know it's not good to look this way. Like this user who said, wow, and then when it's fake. Yes, exactly this. It's just not a good look, guys. I'm telling you, the only reason they did this was to drum up hype and hopefully pull in more investors. And I mean, okay, makes sense. It'll work probably, but unfortunately, this is just how AAA is. It's not just CDPR, and just proves time and again that they just, as an industry, man, just have to stop doing this. Let's just call it what it is. It's false advertising. I prefer it when games just use actual in-game footage to promote their games. A good, more recent example, maybe? Go look at Final Fantasy 16. The trailers for that game, even when it was first initially revealed, were in-engine and they were pulled from the game. Every scene in any trailer was something that tangibly happened in that game when you bought a copy. So there was zero lying on display there. Even the fight in the beginning of 16 when, Shiva and Titan are duking it out on the battlefield. That is in the game, just as it was in the trailer. That's how you should market your game, because then you're not going to be called liars or deceivers. But CDPR has done this not once, but like, what, 3 times at least now? And the other problem is apparently the Unreal Engine 5 is giving them trouble if rumors are to be believed too. So here's Daniel Vavra, he's the director of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and here's him talking about Unreal Engine, especially the 5th iteration, which is what Witcher 4 is running on, by the way, and how, from what he heard internally, CDPR is pulling their hair out and having a really hard time making anything work in that engine. Hopefully, this clip that I'm about to show you doesn't get copyrighted, so here, please watch.
Mě by zajímalo, proč jste vybrali CryEngine si vlastně vůbec.
Protože v té době nic jiného to neutáhlo takhle.
Unreal nebylo ještě jako.
A on teda ve skutečnosti Unreal to neutáhne ani teďka, jako to vypadá. Jako já jsem se bavil s borcema, co dělají Witchera, a nebo ze studií, co prostě se teďka snaží dělat nějaký open world hry prostě na Unrealu, protože na Unrealu jako vlastně Unreal žádný open world hry moc.
Teď,
No, právě to není úplně pravda, že jo. Všechny ty velké hry mají vlastní enginy, jako že jo, Assassin's Creed a všechno je na vlastních enginech. A teďka prostě CD Projekt jako přešel na Unreal, přičemž měli vlastně podle mě dobrý vlastní engine. No a slyšel jsem taky zvěsti, že teďka jsou z toho dost jako...
Že se neudělal chybu.
No bavil jsem se s jedním člověkem, jehož jméno nemůžu samozřejmě říct, a říkám mu, tak co Unreal? On říkal, jako super, už tam máme udělaný kus jako nějaký krajiny, a to říkám, no a v open worldu? No to ještě ne. Oznámili to když, rok 2 zpátky a prostě furt jim to nejde tak, jak jim to jelo na tom.
Ten je super, jako...
Teďka jak udělali vlastně, vylepšili tu grafiku kvůli těm konzolím a tak dále, to je furt nádherný, jak blázen. Takže se mi to extrémně
že jo, tak jednoznačně, tak jako samozřejmě v tom Unrealu máš obrovský tým, který má strašně moc prachu, že jo, a každá píčovina tam jako může na to nasadit 10 lidí, že to budou dělat, ale vlastně jejich dlouhodobý problém si myslím je, že jako vždycky jako něco ukážou, ono to vypadá strašně super, a pak když to chceš použít, tak zjistíš, že to jako je strašně super, pokud děláš hru, která se odehrává v jedné místnosti, je tam člověk a pes. No a není tam žádný kaktus, ty vole. Protože renderování kaktusu je problém, ty vole. Jako, rozumíš, jako jo, že prostě, když chceš udělat hru z pouště, kde nejsou stromy, tak jako super. Což je by the way přesně, že třeba Metal Gear 5, který teda není na Unrealu, tuším. Ne, ten je na něčem jejich vlastním. No. Ale jo, prostě kdybyste teďka chtěl udělat hru na Unrealu z nějakých skal, tak super, ale neuměli stromy strašně dlouho. Protože ten jejich nanite prostě doteďka neuměl generovat vegetaci. Teď ji teda umí a jsou úplně boží videa, že jo, jako jakých lesů prostě v Unrealu. A ještě nejlepší, že ty lesy si můžeš koupit od nějakého Franty za $1000 a můžeš dělat hru z lesa, prostě my jsme to 2 roky vyvíjeli stromy, ty vole, nějaký Franta.
Nějakou generaci automaticky.
No, ale v tom shopu prostě Franta prodává stromy do různých vegetačních pásem, prostě ty stromy pro božsky a tak. Až na to, že pak se podíváš, že na nějaký demo a zjistíš, že to sice vypadá úplně božsky, jako fotky prostě, no jako film, ale musíš na to mít komp za 200 litrů a maximálně 4 lidi tam můžou chodit, protože pak to se ani na tom kompu za 200 litrů se to v tom nastavení, který ten Franta ti ukazuje, se to nehne. Jo? Prostě takže jako a my, když jsme to zkoušeli, tak prostě Unreal nám prostě říkali, jo, to půjde všechno a nešlo to. My dali jsme tam 3 světla a bylo to v prdeli. Do CryEngineu jsme dali 20 světel a 10krát tolik stromů a jelo to.
Tam byl taky docela náročný ten kam, když vyšel z pletu, ne? Jako
jo.
Trošku víc, no.
A
než vlastně CryEngine využívá už teď jenom snad, co je poslední hra?
No nic skoro.
Kingdom Come a Hunt, že jo? No.
Star Citizen se děje vlastní, že jo? Což je teda by the way, Star Citizen je úplně nechápu, jak to vůbec jako, ta hra je prostě neuvěřitelná. Jakože všichni o tom furt mají nějaký, to je přesně takový to, o Star Citizenu to je něco, jak když si povídají lidi o mně trochu, jakože jo, to je ta hra, jak žádná hra není, jak okradli, 2 miliony lidí. Ta hra je úplně neuvěřitelná.
Já si to furt chci zahrát, že
jsem dolar, co do toho narvali a narvali to asi 200 milionů dolarů nebo kolik.
To je nejdražší hra.
Je tam jako vidět, ale prostě. Jo. A ta hra furt není hotová, jasně, ale ty vole, to je prostě, tam můžeš dostat epidermický teplotní šok, jak se tomu říká? Epidermický nebo něco to? Jo, prostě vylezeš bez skafandru na mráz, jo, a dostaneš tam tenhle šok, ale začneš to fakt jako simulovat realisticky. Prostě sedneš si do auta, jsi v raketě, vyjedeš s obrněným autem z rakety a zamlžeš se ti v okna. Realisticky, protože takhle kokiny tam mají prostě.
A hlavně já koukal, teď byl ten single player trailer vyšel, že?
No.
To vypadá tak krásně.
Ty se to už 6 let mělo být, ale prostě všechno, co tam jde dělat, je úplně neskutečný.
And hopefully that's still in the video, hopefully, but based on that clip you hopefully just saw, Daniel Vavras just says it how it is from a game development standpoint, which is that from what he's been told internally about Witcher 4 is that it doesn't really work with Unreal Engine 5, at least when he was told about it. They couldn't render open world environments or anything. Maybe now they can, I hope anyway. And my guess could be slicing the open world into smaller segments perhaps could work so that the engine doesn't explode and die instantly upon turning it on. Because even in the area they showed in the tech demo, Ciri is shown walking in a straight line early on and then rides the horse in a fairly straight line too. Once she reaches the town that she goes into, we see dense amounts of people, which looks good. But again, it's a tech demo. We can't take this at face value to assume that this fishing village will be this densely populated when the game comes out. And look, I'm not trying to say I want Witcher 4 to fail. God, no, I love The Witcher, and I hope I'm wrong about all of this. I really do. I really hope they manage to nail this, because from what they showed, it looks really nice, but the possibility is that Witcher 4 could maybe do smaller zone maps instead, more like Witcher 2. That would be a good comparison. I'd be fine with that. Because a reminder that Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 were made on the Red engine, which like Daniel Vavra said in that clip that you just saw, it was a good engine, and I mean it is. Witcher 3 runs great on it, so does Cyberpunk. Well, now anyways. But he also brought up in the point how many open world games don't really use Unreal Engine 5 because it's not necessarily built for that sort of game. He brought up Assassin's Creed. Basically every game in that series, if you didn't know, has been made on the Anvil engine. Another great example of how an engine can be a nightmare is the Frostbite engine. Electronic Arts owns that one, and they mostly use it for their Battlefield games and racing games, although places like BioWare were also forced to use it for their games, namely Anthem and Dragon Age Inquisition. And it didn't work the way that BioWare wanted, but they were forced to use it because EA didn't want to pay licensing fees to another company's engine. But here's the thing, right? Think of engines like weapon types in Dark Souls, if you will. Every weapon has a scaling stat. Some scale in strength, some in faith, others in arcane. If your character is built 100% into strength and 0 faith, would it be a better idea to use a strength weapon scaling with like S or a faith weapon scaling in B? What do you think will do more damage? Obviously, the strength weapon, right? That's engines pretty much. What CDPR has done here is they are not using their Red engine, which they've obviously spec'd into for a really long time, and are now using another engine, this time Unreal. So now they gotta respec their points and change their points around to make sure they can do that well enough too. But this now begs the next question people are wondering, which is simply, why? Why abandon Red engine for Unreal Engine 5 then? What benefits are there if all of their devs now need to learn an engine they haven't developed games on with the past with? Why do this in the first place? And the answer is actually simple. It's about homogenizing the game development development process. Let me explain. You see, the problem before was that every studio had their own engine that they all specialized in. Square Enix has Luminous, which they use on Final Fantasy. Like I said, Ubisoft has Anvil, EA has Frostbite, CDPR has Red Engine, so on and so on. This is good because it means everyone at your studio can learn and adapt to your own unique engine and make unique experiences. And you can add or take away things, and you can pretty much do whatever you want because it's your own company's engine. You also didn't have to pay extra fees to use this engine or that. However, with Unreal, which if you want a game that shows the strength of Unreal, simply go look at Fortnite. After all, Epic owns Fortnite and the Unreal Engine, so this is a good comparison. And Fortnite, as we know, it runs well because Epic is familiar with all the iterations of Unreal because they obviously made it. And it has advanced features like Lumen or Nanite, which by the way, CDPR name drops Nanite in that showcase when they talk about trees in Witcher 4 showcase. And these features allow for more realistic lighting and higher assets to use in game. However, it's not the meat of the engine that is the most important to not only CDPR, but really everyone else that's using Unreal Engine 5. The point is the accessibility, and this one is key. The fact that if most studios shift to the same engine to make games across the entire industry, then it becomes in theory far easier for studios to hire and transfer devs from other studios at a more rapid pace with far less downtime for learning to make game development smoother. Obviously before, if someone from Ubisoft, let's say, joined CDPR, they would now have to learn how Red Engine works because they didn't work with that engine, only Anvil, right? But if they're all now on Unreal, well, it's easier of course. Think of each engine like a language, but then English here is, I guess, the Unreal Engine, if you will. Most of the world can to some degree speak English, and it means it makes it easier for all of us to communicate no matter where we're from. That's Unreal Engine, pretty much. Unreal is also open source and allows for modding in games to be easier too. It also has lower cost than other engines, making game development in theory cheaper, hopefully. So if everyone works on the same engine, then it should hopefully just speed everything up instead of everyone being masters of all of these obscure engines that nobody else uses. So I understand the reasoning that it all makes sense, but it doesn't help us when it comes back to Witcher 4. Because if what Daniel Vavra said was true, then what we saw of Witcher 4 was not real at all, and we know now that it isn't, so how can we trust it then? The truth is, sadly, we can't, and while this may be good in the long run for speeding up dev time when it comes to learning, it's also going to limit what sort of games can be made in general too, and maybe even make them less unique because all these other engines were good at different things, you know? That's kind of a big problem when you think about it too, but anyways. Because now if every studio, or most of them, are using Unreal Engine 5, so too does that mean that the same limitations of what that engine can do will also now become a more common problem across the board for every game developed with that engine. And I mean, even 343 Industries, or Halo Studios as they're now known for, also swapped the Halo franchise to Unreal Engine 5 going forward, so as you can see, a lot of people are doing it. I then decided to look into the drawbacks of Unreal Engine 5, since if so many people are now using it, might as well know what the issues are about it too, right? So, according to what I can find online, hopefully it's true, but Unreal Engine 5 has a tendency to not work well with lower end hardware. So if you have a bad PC, you're in for a horrible time when these games inevitably come out. There's also the fact that you will pay royalties to Epic for using their engine, which I'm sure is just going to make Epic billions considering this. The actual royalty percent is 5%, by the way, so Epic is going to make 5% of whatever Witcher 4 does. Another issue is game file sizes. Games made with Unreal Engine 5 usually result in larger than usual game file sizes. And now this can impact two key parts of not just PC but consoles too, and being the storage space required for these games, just due to the sheer size of how big they are, you know, due to the high quality assets and secondary, and this is key too, it also affects loading times. Loading times are worse in Unreal Engine 5 games. It is just what it is, unfortunately, and the engine also has a steep learning curve and takes usually a long time for someone to become proficient in Unreal, which won't be too much of an issue, I guess, if everyone just learns from the get-go. Other issues include iteration times, which means changing code is very consuming and may also need reboots. The blueprint systems, which are used for visual scripting, are binary, so it becomes harder to make these changes using the control systems of Unreal. There has also been a complaint that Unreal Engine has a lack of documentation libraries, which is probably something they should fix, and Unreal Engine 5, like most engines, are also prone to bugs and crashes, but I mean, that's every engine until things are optimized, of course. You also have shader compiling, and startup times are also time consuming, but the point is that the engine is not without its own faults. But obviously, the benefits must outweigh the cost for these studios since they're all using it. But I think the major reason why is so studios can change developers more frequently and easier. I think personally that's the major part, especially since contractors are very key to making many AAA games these days. Like from what I was told about Ubisoft from insiders, they rely insanely heavily on contract work when making their games, and hey, that would be a lot easier to do if everyone, even the contractors, all worked on the same engine, right? Then beyond this, at least it's good to see that CDPR has also fixed Series Phase 2 too. She no longer looks like she's been stung by bees, but now looks more in line with her face from Witcher 3. But again, it's a vertical slice, so either way, I really wouldn't get my hopes up too high right now. And it's also just eye-roll worthy to see CDPR, as seen here, still doing the Pride logo in June this year, when so many other companies have already abandoned this slop, and I mean for good reason. But like I said, man, CDPR, they haven't given up on DEI at all, so it doesn't really surprise me. But overall though, from what CDPR showed of Witcher 4, none of it looks like they learned much of anything yet, if I'm being honest. They're still being deceptive, they're still pushing tech demos as real gameplay for a third time now, and I'm frankly sick of all companies doing this. Look, I hope Witcher 4 is amazing, but this just wasn't the way to do it in my opinion. Just do it like Final Fantasy 16 or others do. Don't show anything until you have it running in-engine, showing real actual gameplay. Because the last things we need is more lies and fake hype in the games industry. Because I would have been far more impressed to see Witcher 4 running in-engine for real than this. But like I said, the game industry is truly like a flat circle, and they just keep doing the same tricks again and again. But now people are finally picking up on it. So again, dear CDPR, if anyone there's watching this, I don't hate you guys. I still want you guys to make great games. Just in the future, criticism where it's due. Maybe don't show us anything if it means it's going to be another tech demo where it won't look like the finished product. Who knows? Maybe it will. If so, amazing. But the likelihood isn't that high, sadly. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more news. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.